and welcome back to the Road to Good Cooking. Today I'm making one of my family favorites, pasta bolognese. This is a wonderful Sunday meal that you will want to make over and over again. Now, be warned, this recipe is going to make a ton of pasta, so you're going to want to have the kids over, the grandbabies, your nieces, your nephews, everybody that wants to come by and grab a plate. Or you can do like Sophie and I did and just pack up some, and I delivered some to my elderly neighbors. Now let me show you how I made my pasta bolognese. For this recipe, I'm going to be using diced tomatoes, pureed tomatoes, and homemade chicken broth. I'm going to be using 2 boxes of penne rigata pasta, and I'm going to cook it according to the package instructions. And I'm going to be using 1 large sweet onion. I'll be using celery, fresh garlic, cheese rinds, which we'll talk about in 1 second, and some carrots and fresh thyme. And for my liquids, I'm going to be using one of my favorite Chardonnays, and always use wine that you like to drink. And I'm going to be using half and half. Now you can use heavy cream if you wish. I didn't have any, so I'm just going to use what I have on hand. Whenever I buy gourmet cheese, I always keep the rinds of the cheese, and what I end up doing with it, I put it in my pasta sauce if I'm making pasta sauce, or sometimes I just add them to a jar and pour some olive oil over them and put some garlic cloves in there. That way I have Parmesan infused olive oil. I add it to my soups, my stews. If I'm making chicken or beef broth, I add it to that. It just imparts a fabulous flavor. So keep your rinds, don't throw them away. This recipe is from my very first cookbook, The Road to Good Cooking by Josie Roed. And you're going to get a gem. Actually, you're going to get 2 gems because the recipe that I'm preparing today is slightly different than what I have in my cookbook, simply because I was missing a few ingredients, so I had to improvise. So, pause it right here, take a screenshot of this recipe, and let's move on. Now it's time to have some fun. Rather than pulling out my great big huge commercial food processor, I'm going to use my little guy here, and I'm going to mute the sound because I don't want to kill your ears with the sound of the food processor. I'm going to put on some music so you can enjoy watching me work. And everything's going to be self-explanatory, and I'll be back in a second. Here is my fresh ground meat. Now you really want to use a good quality cut of meat. Don't use something too fatty because the meat is what really makes this recipe. Now my recipe in my cookbook calls for 1 pound of ground sirloin, 1 pound of ground veal, and a half a pound of ground pork. I didn't have any veal, but I did have some ground sirloin. So I ended up using 2 pounds of ground sirloin here. And I had some pork tenderloin, so I ground that up, and that's my half a pound of pork. Now, if you wish, you can use all ground beef or all ground pork. I've made it both ways, and either way, it's really, really good. So the combination of meat, that's pretty much your own preference. So, but just use a good quality cut of meat, okay? All right, let's move on. I put my Dutch oven pan over a medium-high heat, and I added all my veggies, and I just added some olive oil to the mix. Now, being as we're going to be cooking in layers, you want to season as you go. And I'm going to add a generous pinch of kosher salt. And I'm going to add some crushed black cracked pepper. or some black pepper. You know what I was trying to say. I'm going to mix everything together until all of my seasonings are well incorporated in the veggies. And I'm going to cook my veggies until they're slightly softened, not cooked all the way through, just softened. I cooked my veggies for a couple of minutes. Now they're nice and softened, right about where I want them. And from here, I'm going to add a teaspoon of my Italian seasoning. And here's the recipe. It's just a generic, basic Italian seasoning. Put it on pause and write the recipe down. To the pan on the back burner, I've added all of my ground meat, and I've added kosher salt and ground black pepper. And here in a second, I'm going to be adding 1 teaspoon of the Italian seasoning. I'm going to cook my ground meat until it's no longer pink, and then I'll be adding that to my veggie mixture. And here's where the magic starts. To my cooked veggies, I'm going to add 2 cups of the Chardonnay. I'm going to cook it until the Chardonnay has reduced down, and all that's going to be left is a luscious, beautiful, wonderful flavor of the wine and the veggies. And, you know, it should pretty much cook off the alcohol, so don't worry about getting the kiddos drunk. Nothing's going to happen to them. I promise, I promise, I promise. After I added the wine to my veggies, you ought to smell my kitchen. It smells absolutely divine. This recipe does have a lot of steps to it, but you know what? It is so worth it. When I'm feeding my family or friends, I'm going to take whatever time I need to make a wonderful recipe like this, and so will you. My ground meat is just about where I want it. It's still a few little pink spots in there, so I'm going to let it keep going. And once it gets completely brown, then I'll take it off the burner and cover it up until my veggies are ready. And my cooked veggies, the liquid is reducing down nicely. It's just about where I want it. I'm going to let it keep going until the wine has completely reduced down. And I just tasted a spoonful of these veggies. Oh my word. Whew. Fantastic. I can eat a bowl full of this stuff right now all by itself. So I'm going to let it keep going until all the liquids have reduced down. And you already know, here's a little drinky poo for the chef. Cheers. As you can see, my wine is just about reduced down. Now I'm using my big heavy 9.5 quart Dutch oven pot, and it cooks pretty fast. But you know, I can't tell you how long your process is going to take because that's going to depend on the pot that you're using. So just keep watching it. If you're using a non-stick pot, just keep watching it until it gets to the level where you no longer can see the liquid. And see here where I'm pushing it around, you can't see the liquid. There's a little bit of liquid in there, but that's okay because by the time I get through adding the meat, or before I start adding the meat, it should be all gone. Now from this point, I'm going to start adding my browned ground beef, and I'm not going to stir my veggies. I want them to get a nice little char crunch on the bottom, and then I'm going to incorporate the veggies into the meat, and that's just going to intensify the flavor. And for the sake of time, I'm going to speed up this process so we can go on to the next step. Whenever I brown beef, I always end up with a beef broth in the bottom of the pan. And someone that lives here with me, they know that. And look who just showed up around the corner because she smelt that beef broth. And she knows it's going to go right over her food. Gotta love the beagle. All of my browned meat have been added to the pot. Now here I'm stirring everything together. I had to scrape up all the brown bits on the bottom of my pot where my veggies were slightly scorched, which is just what I wanted. I tasted the mixture and it is absolutely amazing. From here I'm going to be adding my diced tomatoes and my pureed tomato sauce. Now I'm going to add my cheese rind. Now the cheese rind is not going to go, it's not going to cook away. It's just going to get nice and soft, and it's going to release the flavor of the Parmesan cheese and the saltiness of the brine, and it's just going to be absolutely just a beautiful flavor. Now what I like to do, some people just fish it out and throw it away afterwards. I like to keep mine in there and spoon it into my dish, and it's nice and chewy and it's just good. It really is good. So you guys gonna be fighting over that little piece of melted cheese. Now I'm gonna add 1 cup of my homemade chicken broth, and that's gonna kind of loosen up my sauce a little bit. Now, and then like I said earlier, I reduced the heat down. I'm gonna let it simmer. Let it simmer while my pasta is cooking. And here's another layer of flavor I love adding to my pasta sauce, sweet Marsala wine. And at the end, I usually splash in a couple of tablespoons full, and it really does give it a beautiful flavor. I'm gonna give it a quick taste. Big thumbs up. It's absolutely amazing. I had some sun-dried tomatoes in my fridge, so I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of them to my sauce, and that's going to give my sauce that really deep, rich tomato flavor. I tasted my sauce again and decided that it needed another little pinch of kosher salt, so that's what I did. I added some kosher salt, and I'm also going to add a pinch of Aleppo pepper flakes, which I absolutely love. I don't like red pepper flakes because I think they're too hot, but Aleppo pepper flakes has a fabulous, rich, fruity flavor to it. So, and it just enhances my sauce. So that's what I did. I'm adding a great big generous pinch of Aleppo pepper flakes. Going to stir everything until it's well combined. Cover up my pot and let my sauce simmer. And look at this sauce, guys. This is not your mama's spaghetti sauce where you open up that that jar of Prego and pour it in some meat. This is This is cooking, girl. This is cooking. This is how you want your sauce to look, and you definitely want it to taste like this. Once you start making your sauce like this, you're not going to go back to that, stuff that you buy in a jar and just pour over some brown meat. You're going to want to do the whole thing. And here, look, here's my my cheese rind. See how soft and melted it's gotten now. Oh, I tell you, it's chewy. It is so good. You guys are going to fight over that little piece of cheese. I guarantee it. You really are. And here I'm adding my half and half. I'm gonna probably end up adding just a half a cup at a time. I like it depending on how creamy you like your sauce. You might want to add a little bit more. If you're using heavy cream, you're definitely gonna want it nice and creamy. And see, I'm stirring this in, and it looks pretty. It looks okay, but I know I'm gonna add another half a cup because I like my sauce nice and creamy. And here I'm adding my second half cup of the half and half. Normally when I make pasta bolognese or any kind of pasta sauce that I want nice and creamy, I use my creme fraiche, but I haven't made any creme fraiche yet this year. So I'm using half and half because I didn't have any heavy cream. But it's good either way. And see how nice and creamy it is? It's just going to be so amazing. I cannot wait for this dish to be done. Okay, I'm going to give it another quick taste. Mmm. Mmm. Perfection. Absolute perfection. Another wiggly thumbs up. I'm going to cover up my pot and simmer my sauce nice and slow. And I'm going to cook my pasta according to the package instructions. I'm going to cook my pasta in two different pots because I want to make sure all of it gets done at the same time. And I'm going to cook it, like I said, according to the package instructions. My pasta's done. I cooked it till al dente, which is right before it's done. It still has a little bite to it. And I'm going to add it to the sauce. I'm going to speed up this process so I can eat. Okay, everything is all mixed up and you know what time it is. It is time for me to get my smack on. Now, I'm not going to bore you with my smacking, so you're going to have to come over on my mukbang channel and have dinner with me. I made plenty, so if you don't have any, I will share mine with you. Just grab a chair, grab a plate, grab a bottle of wine, and you're good to go. This recipe is going to make a ton of food. I made it in a 9.5 quart pot, and I have been sharing it with my neighbors. And what I didn't share with them, I put in vacuum sealed bags. So I have 2 servings per bag. So I got 8 servings right there in the vacuum sealed bags. And then in the dish, I'm going to probably eat off that for the next day or so. So there is plenty of food here for everybody. Now, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. I'm sorry this video was so long, but I wanted to make sure you guys got all the details. Thank you so much for stopping by. And don't forget to share my video and my channel with everyone you know in the universe. Be blessed and keep on cooking.